Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Synced Up Design's Equipment Basics. My name is Kyle, and in this video, we're going to be introducing our next saber toss, which is going to be our blade tosses. Different from our hilt tosses that came out of the hilt from the left hand, these will be tosses we throw from the blade and with the right hand. And as always, if you could just take a quick second to like this video and subscribe to our channel, it would really mean a lot to me. And if you want to stay up to date with anything we put out in the future, go ahead and hit that bell icon down below as well. Anyways, enough of that, let's go ahead and move into the video. So like I said earlier, we're going to be learning how to throw our blade tosses, which is going to be a different approach than we take from our hilt tosses. Again, like I said, we're going to be starting from a different part of the saber, and we're going to be manipulating a different amount of weight to get into this release. So the technical approach is going to be slightly different. In this video, we're going to first break down all of the steps that you need to know in order to get a toss out on blade. We'll put them all together to throw a single into the air, and then we will go over all of the different release points we see for our doubles, triples, and quads, and then ultimately our 5s, 6s, and 7s as well. Afterwards, we'll go over a few pointers that you need to know and things that you need to remember as you're trying to work on these tosses. So the first thing I want to go over is going to be our starting position for blade tosses. So I want you to go ahead and start with your blade in a right flat position. You can have your lower body in a normal second position. And I want you to take that left hand and place it underneath at the hilt, where both hands are under the saber and both thumbs are pressed against the back of it. When you're here, I want you to take it to a hip-shoulder angle with your left hand in line with your left shoulder and your right hand in line with your right hip. Go ahead and take that right hand and slide it slightly up on the saber to where it's just slightly above that catch tape, and have it be pinched between your thumb and your index finger, with the other 4 fingers resting against the front of the blade. This is going to be the start position for a blade toss, again, because we'll be throwing from that right hand, and we need to use this angle position start to help build up momentum into the release as we go through that. So hip shoulder angle, both hands underneath, and that right hand pinched slightly above that catch tape. So next thing I want to talk about is going to be your push to your release, or in this case, it's going to be your pull, since both of your hands are starting underneath your saber. So we're going to go ahead and start in that starting position. And the first thing we do when we want to throw a blade toss is we initiate by pulling that left hand down, or pulling the hilt down to feel the swing in the lower space. Notice that my right hand is trying to stay in that spin dot, and it's just the wrist rotating. I'm going to pull with enough energy so that way it swings down and then redirects back up to this outer angle right here, which is ultimately going to be where I let go of the saber. Different from our hilt tosses where we released at that flat position because of the counterbalance of weight, we are actually going to allow this to go all the way up to the angle, since we are manipulating the hilt on the release of this toss. So we initiate by the pull to feel the swing, and then we release at this angle. Counting wise, or count structure wise, you will count off 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're going to initiate the pull on 8 and, so that way it can redirect up to the release on count 1. So what that looks like is 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1. And then we let go on that count 1. Now, just quick reminder, when we get to those higher tosses, the time you have between your release point for a single and your release point for a 7 remains the same. It's really just 1 count. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about the energy you need to put into it and the speed of getting up to that release point, depending on whatever toss you're throwing, increasing so you're able to get the extra rotations that you need. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is going to be counting our rotations. And when it comes to counting blade tosses, we're going to base it off of how many times we see the hilt go up while it's spinning in the air. For every rotation, you're going to see the hilt go up 1 extra amount of times. So if you're throwing a single, you're going to see the hilt go up twice. If you throw a double, you'll see it go up 3 times, which is fairly similar to what we did with our left-hand tosses. The only difference is the last time the hilt goes up on whatever rotation you do, that's also going to be your catch. Whenever we threw from our left hand, we'd see the tip go up 1 last time, and then we would catch after at that flat position. But when it comes to blade tosses, we're going to see the hilt go up however many times it does, and on that last time is when our hand actually goes in to connect with it. So it's just a slightly different approach, but still the same idea. For a single, I would release it up on the release 1 time. It'll go up 1 more time in the air, and that's when I squeeze it on that 2nd time. For a double, I see it go up once on the release, 1 more time in the air, and then the 3rd time is when my hand would connect back with it to catch at that vertical position. So again, very similar to our left hand, just a slight difference in terms of timing for the catch itself. And then the last component we need to think about is going to be our catch position. So when we go in for our catch, we are going to connect the palm of our hand with the edge of the saber, the sharp side of the saber, press the thumb against the back of the blade, and then wrap the other 4 fingers around the front and side to secure that nice solid catch. I'm catching closer to the center of the saber, and I'm gonna get it back in that spin dot position when I catch. Saber ultimately should try and be at a vertical position when I catch. Along with this, the cage of the saber should be facing towards the right side of the room, which is how we started when I catch as well. So just really think about pressing that thumb against the back and squeezing the other 4 fingers around to make sure that you keep that cage facing the right direction and you're really trying to squeeze in the center of the blade. And if we put all that together, we should be able to get a single toss out. So again, we initiate with that pull so it gets back up to this angle. We let go at the top, allow it to rotate once up in the air on the release. On the second time, my hand is gonna go in and then I'm gonna squeeze, pressing that thumb against the back and wrapping the other 4 fingers around, making sure that my palm is connected to the saber so it's softening the catch as I go through. So quick demo of a single, I go 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, and 2. Again, pressing that thumb against the back as much as I can. One more demo, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2. And there is my single blade toss with the breakdown of all the foundational things we need to know for the technique. So now I want to talk about how we can get our blade doubles, triples, and quads, which similar to all of our other tosses is going to be the same approach in terms of increasing our rotation. All we have to do is increase the energy we put into the pull to the release and increase the height of our release point. Everything else technically remains the same. When it comes to our release points, all of the blade toss releases are going to be the exact same as we did for our hilt tosses. So for example, when it comes to our double, our release point is going to be wrist in line with chest, where our single was wrist in line with our spin dot. So for a double, we release wrist in line with chest, we release at that upper angle, hilt will go up once on the release, 1 time in the air, and the 3rd time it goes up is when we're gonna secure that catch in at that vertical position. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, and 2, and that'll be the catch of our double. For a triple, we're gonna release with our wrist in line with our shoulder, and the hilt is gonna go up a total of 4 times. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, and 2, and 3. And again, pressing that thumb against the back of the blade to make sure that we're keeping the hilt towards that side of the room. For a quad, we're gonna release with our forearm or center of forearm in line with our shoulder, and the hilt is gonna go up a total of 5 times in terms of counting. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, and 3, and right there. I was a little under rotated. One more try. 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3. And there is that vertical position right there. Again, pressing that thumb against the back and watching how many times the hilt goes up into the air. When it comes to our 5s, 6s, and 7s, the approach is going to be the same. We're going to increase how much height we give to our release point and increase the energy we put into the pull. I'm not able to demonstrate this because my ceilings are just a little bit too low, but I will review over those release points. The 5 is going to be elbow in line with the shoulder, or that right angle, 90-degree angle right there. 6 is going to be elbow in line with the mouth, and then 7 is going to be elbow in line with the forehead. Again, really thinking about increasing the energy of the pull and then finding that release point as we go through. So those heights are just going to be increasing over time. And again, it's very similar to the stuff we did on the left side. So remembering release points should be fairly easy. So now one detail I want to talk about is going to be the free arm, specifically underneath anything that is a double or above. When we threw a single, we should be able to keep our hand relatively in the same space because the saber just rotates around it once and then we can go in for that catch. But anything above a single, you really want to think about what your free arm does so that way you don't get in the way of the saber's rotation and possibly get nicked by your saber, which is, I promise you, not a fun feeling. So there's a couple different options we have for this. The first one, and probably the most common, is going to be fist in line with your chest. So whenever you release a double or above, you'll let go, find that release point, you'll pull your hand into your chest, creating a fist, and hold it there until the very last second for when you'll go into the catch. So quick demo of that is 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, and 2, and. Again, pulling that chest in, or that hand into the chest. The other option is going to be keeping that free hand up, but you want to think about pulling it back behind the rotation of the saber. So if the saber's rotating here, my hand is not in line with the saber, but I'm pulling back behind it and I put it in at the last moment where that catch happens. So really keeping that free arm up there, but pulling it back to keep it out of, some people call the blunder specifically. So we can keep that free hand up, but we just want to think about pulling it back if we decide to do that. Quick demo of that. 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, and 2, and. Yeah, again, making sure that it stays behind the rotation of the saber. The second thing I want to talk about is going to be how you catch a blade toss, or really the approach you want to take as you try to catch it. Like I said earlier, you will catch this in the right hand in the center of the blade at a vertical position. Now, there's something you want to think about when you're trying to go for a vertical position that'll really make sure that you actually nail this position. You want to think of, as the rotation is finishing out, you start to connect with the saber at this outer angle, and then you squeeze at the vertical. What this allows you to do is make sure that you're stopping it at that pure vertical position, because if you thought about connecting with the saber at the vertical and then squeezed after, we see that we actually pass that vertical position and even increase the chance of it possibly continuing to spin out of your hands, ultimately leading to a drop. So again, you want to think about connecting on the outer angle and then squeezing at the vertical. You don't think about wrapping the hands here and stopping it there, but you do want to feel that connection and then pull it to that vertical position so you can really control what angle it's at when you want the saber to stop. And then the last thing I want to talk about is going to be something known as fishing or discoing, which is essentially the twist of the saber as it's rotating in the air. There are two main things that cause your saber to twist when it comes to throwing a blade toss. The first is going to be on the catch. Remember how I talked about the thumb pressing against the back of the saber when we were going in for that catch position? Well, that's really important, because if I thought about wrapping my thumb, I risk the chance of possibly flipping the saber over on the catch when I go in for that catch position. So you really want to think about pressing that thumb against the back so that hilt stays on the right side or towards your right side as you go in for that catch position, and it doesn't twist at the very last second. If it's twisting in the air, it's probably how you're releasing the saber. When I am pinching the saber with my right hand, I want to think that as I go to that release point, that I let go of the saber with all 5 fingers at the exact same time. If you don't do that and you release one finger at a time, you'll notice that as my saber starts to swing down, the hilt starts to twist forward because I released one finger at a time going into that release. And then when I let go of it, the saber is twisting as it's rotating in the air. So really think about gluing those 4 fingers together and then keeping the thumb pressed against the back. And then as I go into that release, I open all of them at the same time, so that way the saber stays flat in my toaster as I go to that release. And I'm avoiding that twist of the fish or the disco while it's in the air. Awesome, so just to recap everything we went over today, we talked about how to throw saber blade tosses. First, talking about all the foundational technique steps that you need to know when it comes to the pull to the initiation, how to count the rotation, all of the different techniques of catching and all those things. Then we put it all together to throw a single. After we've understood all those basic components, we went into the discussion of how to throw our doubles, triples, and quads, really talking about how it's just an increase of energy of that pull, an increase of our release points, and luckily the release points mirror that of the left hand, so they're pretty easy to remember. And then we also talked about the same thing when it came to our 5s, 6s, and 7s. Once we understood how to throw all of our blade tosses, we went into some of the details of other things we need to be thinking about as we throw them. First being that we want to make sure that we keep that free arm either out of the way in that ball next to the chest or out of the way pulled back behind the rotation. So that way we, 1, have a clear picture, but 2, are keeping our hands away from danger zone as we go through that. The second thing we talked about was our catch, making sure that we connect with the saber on this outer angle and then squeeze at the vertical, so that way we can really control what position it's in when we go into catch, and we're not letting it continue to spin on past that position. And then lastly, we talked about some things that could cause a fish or a disco, essentially the twisting of the saber. First being that when we let go of it, we want to make sure that we let go with all 5 fingers at the same time, and then on the catch, making sure to press that thumb against the back of the saber so that way that hilt doesn't flip over on the catch itself. And that was our video on saber blade tosses. In general, this is a staple in the color guard community, so it's really important that everyone knows how to throw a blade toss, at least a double, and then going on to the higher tosses, because you will see it frequently when it comes to choreography or anything you do in this show. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, and as always, if you have any questions or concerns, go ahead and leave them down below in the comments, and we'll be there to help you guys out with that. Anyways, I'll see you on the next one, and happy spinning.